Okay.
Welcome, everyone. Test. Maybe now. There we go. Welcome, everyone, to the monthly meeting of the Bethlehem Planning Commission. My name is Rob Malassi. I'm the chair of the meeting. Other members included my immediate left, Mr. Matt Malozzi and Ms. Joy Cohen. We ask anyone in attendance tonight to please silence your cell phones at this time. We will proceed today through our agenda with the projects as they are listed. Each applicant will have a chance to present their project to the commission as their agenda item is called. Following that presentation, city staff will provide an overview of the city's comments and a recommendation. Then the planning commission members will have an opportunity to direct questions related to the project to both the applicant and city staff. Following planning commission discussion, interested parties will have an opportunity to comment on or ask questions related to the project. All interested parties will be asking in their name and address for the record. We also, I believe, near the podium have a sign-in sheet. We ask that you write your name and address and email address in the sign-in sheet provided. We will adhere to a 5-minute time limit for each member of the public, and each person will have one opportunity to speak. We ask that all comments be related to the project under review and that all comments be related to the land use issues of the project. Where there are a significant number of interested parties, we request that members of the public be concise in their testimony and avoid repeating previously made assertions. After all interested parties have an opportunity to speak, planning commission members will have a final opportunity to deliberate. The review of the planning commission is based on the provisions of the SALDO, zoning ordinances, and other municipal ordinances. Decisions will be based on these ordinances, recommendation of the city staff, pertinent public good, and the pertinent public comment and the public good. I would ask at this time we call for our first agenda item, which is the approval of the July 13, 2023 minutes. Any discussion on the minutes? I'll accept the motion at this time.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the July 13th.
Motion made, Ms. Cohen. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second, Mr. Malozzi. Roll, please.
Ms. Cohen,
Yes.
Mr. Malozzi,
Yes.
Mr. Malassi.
Yes, minutes approved. Our next agenda item is a special study being done by the City of Bethlehem Wastewater Treatment Plant, Act 537. I'll turn that over to Darlene Heller at this time.
Well, a study like this, I will acknowledge, is way beyond my expertise. Ed Brascola is here. Do you want to come up and then maybe you can use the mic at the table if you don't mind? Director of Water and Sewer Resources for the City of Bethlehem. And the study was required to be able to expand the treatment plant. And can you go into some
Sure.
explanation of what that is? We've attached our comment letter, and also we have a comment letter from the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission.
Sure. I'll give the board kind of like a high level overview of what we're talking about here. I don't know how often the Planning Commission gets into 537 plans.
This is the first time in very
right,
very
because
long time.
these things don't come around that often. So 537 is Act 537 is a state law which governs the sort of planning, management of municipal wastewater treatment and collection systems. Very simply, the City of Bethlehem has a wastewater treatment plant. We have a collection system. We collect all sanitary waste from residents in the City of Bethlehem, plus all or parts of 12 surrounding municipalities. So the plan allows the city to forecast, plan for, budget for changes in development. Like we try to forecast development, increases in population. What do we have to do to expand the plant to treat increases in wastewater. The current city's plan was approved back in 2012. Speaking of the time frame, so that's almost over 10 years ago. And that plan kind of looked at a 20-year time horizon. So it looked out towards like the year 2030 for planning purposes. And now here we are in 2023. We have the benefit of having 10 years behind us in terms of being able to implement what we said we were going to do in that plan. And the act allows for municipalities to basically change course. These things are not etched in stone. You can modify them depending on what's going on in the community or what's going on in wastewater treatment. So where we find ourselves today is the main focus of this special study is solely looking at the operation of wastewater treatment plant. So our wastewater treatment plant is down on Chimersville Road in the city of Bethlehem. It doesn't affect any of the collection systems. Basically, the plan as it was defined back in 2012 is still valid for the community, for development, developers, all of the surrounding townships. We're strictly looking at the operation of the plant. And what we're finding is that the plant has two sort of primary rating numbers. I'll try and keep this simple. One is flow, is a hydraulic flow rate. Our plant is rated at 20 million gallons per day. Currently, our flows are about 60% of that. Probably on average, we average about 12 million gallons a day. And that number really hasn't changed in at least 20 years. So our flow rates have been very steady for a very long time. The other number that's important is the organic treatment capacity. So if you think about what is in wastewater, right, but a lot of organic matter that the plant has to treat. And that is measured in terms of, it's called biochemical oxygen demand. It's a BOD is the short term phrase for it. And it's basically just a chemistry number that we assign that measures how much volume of waste, organic waste is coming into the plant. And that number has been increasing over time. So while the flow has been very steady, flat, the organic load has been increasing. And that's for a number of reasons. One is there's been a much greater use in kitchen garbage disposals, for example, recycling. People dump more food waste down the drain, if you will. That's one thing. We have much more high strength industrial users. Justborn is a prime example. As they expand, Freshpet is one of our customers. If you're familiar with Freshpet, SunCup is a recent. They're a juice bottler. So any of the waste is very high strength in terms of sugars and starches, which are organic. So all that's coming down to the plant. So over time, while the flows have been steady, we're seeing an increase in the organics. And so what this study does is, we hired a consultant to take a look at this and say, okay, what do we got to do here? How do we modify the plant to be able to treat this organics without busting the budget and to try and keep with the plan? The reason for the special study is that we're deviating from the original plan a little bit because of new technology that's out there. We're going to install a system. It's called a chemically enhanced primary treatment system. It's basically a chemical addition that we add to the primary clarifiers. It's a coagulant. And what does a coagulant do? It's kind of like a glue. It's a chemical that helps bind the organic matter together. I'm not trying to get too overly technical here. So that the organic matter binds together, becomes heavier. It drops into to the bottom of the clarifier, where that organic matter gets pumped up to the digesters for treatment. And what that effectively does is allow us to increase the rating of the plant overall by taking the load off of the secondary treatment system. So we can increase the plant organic rating from 39,000 pounds per day to about 50,000 pounds per day, recognizing that the flow rate is still the same. Because we're changing that rating, the DEP wanted us to go through the planning process. That's why we call this now a special study that just modifies our current plan. So to go through a special study, it's almost like going through a whole nother 537 plan where we have to take it to all of the planning commissions. So the city plus all of the other contributing municipal planning commissions. We've already received some feedback from them. There's 12 of them. And then the process, we have to return to each municipality to get a formal resolution from the governing body, so the city council or the township councils, approving the plan. And then it gets submitted to DEP, and then they do their thing. And then eventually, at the end of the day, hopefully we get a re-rated plant that goes from 39,000 pounds to 50,000 pounds per day of organic load capacity. It can be a tedious process. It's administratively burdensome, if you will. We started it this year. We're going through the planning commission meetings now, trying to get that feedback. We'll be back to the councils probably in the fall. It will get submitted to DEP maybe by the end of the year or early next year, and then the DEP will start taking a look at it next year. At this point, really all we're looking for is feedback from planning commission. So there's no mechanism for a formal vote per se. We're just looking for feedback. We got feedback from the other township planning commission so far. We got feedback from Lehigh Valley Planning Commission. Comments, we like it, we don't like it. We have these comments. That's what we're looking for. All those comments get documented, they get put into the final report, and then it all gets sent back out to DEP.
So, Ms. Heller, if I'm hearing Mr. Muscola correctly, we are not necessarily passing along any recommendation to council. We're giving feedback, which he's looking for, and that eventually Mr. Muscola will have to return to city council in a few months. Is that correct? Any planning commission members have any questions for Mr. Muscola at this time?
Chairman,
Mr. Malozzi, yes, sir.
is this a capital improvement or more process? Like you're just adding, like are you building anything new on the
Yes,
site?
it is a capital improvement.
Okay.
It's really nothing more than a chemical storage tank, some metering pumps, and some piping and some controls. Now it's about $1 million project, but it is a capital improvement. Yes.
And does this require PA DEP approval as well ultimately?
Yes, there's a water quality management permit that we already received to install the system. Yes.
So
So there were kind of like two approval tracks, if you will. There's the planning process, which this is the 537. There's the permitting process, which is water quality. That's kind of a separate parallel track that we're following.
understood.
These improvements are they made by, or is this something, Mr. Muscola, we have to subcontract for? Is that something that our city employees are able
Now,
to?
this was publicly bid. It was designed by an engineer, publicly bid, and awarded to a contractor.
So the bid has been approved already? but-
Yes.
Any other questions?
I'm in favor. It's great. I appreciate the maintenance. I do a lot of work in the municipality just to our west, and there are EPA consent decrees and full sewage planning modules, and because the capacity is strained. So we're here tonight, and we have a number of applications, including restaurants, which are heavy users, to your point about the BOD.
Mhm.
So no, it's great that you're out in front of it. Appreciate the work that's done here. And that's a very skillful clinical description of a sewage planning treatment process.
I try.
Thank you. So you've done that before.
I do have a question.
Ms. Cohen,
Is it my understanding that the addition of the additional equipment that processes the water treatment, increases the efficiency of the equipment that you already have, that reduces then the cost of a future costs.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it will. So it basically increases the efficiency of the primary clarifier. Clarifier acts to settle solids. So what you're trying to do, broadly speaking, separate the solids from the water, because clean the water up as much as you can, because you're going to release that back to the Lehigh River. And of course, we have a permit that we have to meet all kind of chemistry regulations, chemistry limits, and we're trying to separate out the solids so we can treat the solids and send them out elsewhere. So it's all about improving the efficiency of that equipment that we have, so we can treat more organic waste.
Thank you.
Anyone in attendance have any questions for Ms. Muskell as it pertains to the Act 537 review for upgrades to our water treatment plant? Well, Mr. Muskell, I want to thank you for coming in. I'm certain that I hope it goes as smooth and as easy for you in the other municipalities, and look forward to you coming back to City Council in a few months.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We don't need to pass along approval. Positive recommendation.
Do you need a vote or anything from?
It would be appreciated if we can get a letter, and it doesn't have to be any more that says we reviewed it and either we have comments or we have no comments.
Okay,
I think that's all.
okay.
That's all
We
need.
can just prepare something to say there's no comments if that's your position.
Well, I would say that any comments that were questions that were asked by, Mr. Malozzi, Ms. Cohen, just be documented for the record and passed along as that. Council, if you believe we have to formally put something out there, feel free to jump in.
Well, given as Ms. Heller documented that the LVPC reviewed the study, I guess reviewed it favorably, I think if it's the sense of the commission to do the same, it doesn't hurt to make a motion.
I'll entertain a motion agreeing with what the council had said in reference to the memo to us from Ms. Heller. I don't see a date on here, but it's in reference to the special study. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to provide favorable support to the Act 537 special study as was presented to the commission.
Second.
Second, Ms. Cohen, roll please.
Ms. Cohen,
Yes.
Mr. Malozzi,
Yes.
Mr. Malosky.
Yes, there you go, Mr. Muskell.
Thank you
for
very
attending.
much.
Yes. Our next agenda item is a sketch plan review at 1223 West Broad Street. Will the applicant step forward, representative, and we'll give you a minute or so to get set.
Yeah,
You can do either.
It's better
And
for the.
if you do any presentation from the board, just grab that microphone. That's okay.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Or that one's good. Mobile one.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Okay.
whenever you're ready, you may introduce yourself and you may begin.
Okay, thank you. Karen Andrews from BDA Architects. I'm an architect there and our associate director of our Bethlehem office. So first of all, thank you for having me here today so that we can present this exciting project. We were contacted by the owner of 1223 West Broad Street a few months ago he wanted our help understanding if he could add apartments onto his site. It's a fairly large site, a little over half an acre, with right now a restaurant and parking around it on two sides. And he's looking to add some apartments to just bring another level of residents to this area of West Broad Street. So what we started doing was first just looking at your zoning to see if that was possible. And It is zoned as limited commercial, which according to the zoning ordinance, residences, dwelling units are allowed on the property. And we understand that we will keep the restaurant here as well. So this would be in addition to the restaurant. We then consulted with one of our structural engineers to look at the existing bank building and see what would be the best way to add apartments onto this site. It was determined that building on top of it really was not feasible without building an entirely new frame. So we thought going off of the back of it would be our best option. From there, we started to do a massing study to look at what would make sense for this site and this neighborhood. So we looked at doing 2 stories up to 5 stories, which again, in your zoning ordinance, I believe 5 stories was allowed as long as we met all the setbacks. So we looked at all of those and determined that really going the maximum, the 4 or the 5, did not make sense in this area in the neighborhood. We have some existing photos of the surrounding site that I can share if that would help anybody after the presentation. So we had determined that going 3 stories is really what made sense. But then when we started to look at the parking counts, that became a concern as to the parking that would be required with the number of apartments. So ultimately we are coming off the back, which is the south side of the building, putting it on an elevated platform over the existing parking, at least over 9 of the existing parking spaces to keep those, and then building 2 stories of apartments above that. Each apartment, it's going to be a total of 6 apartment units. It'll be 4 2-bedroom units and 2 1-bedroom units. So I know that the owner is looking to have more professionals here and families here, not students. And then on top of that, then we have the stairs and the elevator, which would be the separation between the restaurant and the apartments. So we wanted to get this in front of you first to get your thoughts on the project. And also we understand that we will need a parking variance, although we were very concerned about it and tried our best to not overextend. It looks like, according to the comments here, that we will need a few. One thing that was decided once we did receive your comments back was that, if you can see, if I can get up, we were originally proposing to add some seats onto the restaurant above the rooftop here. And we understand, since we are going over that 20 threshold, that we would need 5 more parking spots for that. So again, in order to be sensitive about that, we determined that we are not going to do the rooftop seating above the restaurant. So we would not need those 5 additional. So ultimately, we'll need 24 for the restaurant and then 9 for the apartments. So that gives us 33 parking spots we need, and there are 30 on the site. Like I said, we are keeping all of those on the site. But at this time, there would be no other variances that would be needed. Again, we meet the setbacks, the impervious coverage. Our building height's only 33 feet. If we take away, we plan on taking this out, the rooftop for the residents, since we no longer need that and can use this if needed. So this will no longer be there. So the building would be 33. Again, I believe your max is 50 or about 5 stories. And I believe that's it then.
Thank you, Ms. Andrews. I certainly commend you as the architect, but the owner to follow this pathway in terms of coming in first for a sketch plan review. That's kind of what we like, and with a project like this that is currently known now throughout the valley as a restaurant. And I do understand it is changing some of the menu items or what have you, changing the style of the restaurant, but knowing that that will continue to be there, I think this is the kind of the right way to go about it. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Heller. And Ms. Heller, anything from the August 14th memo before we kind of proceed with our comments or questions for Ms. Andrews?
Well, for a sketch plan review, we do try to just pull out for you some of the bigger picture comments. Attached, there are some very detailed comments from engineering and fire and zoning, but those comments would really be addressed at the land development phase. So at this point, the main comment is the fact that, yes, they do need some zoning hearing board relief. Looks like it's reduced from what we had originally anticipated. And that is special exception review by the Planning Commission. And then also we would take a look at traffic counts and see if there's any significant traffic impacts that we would look at for that as well. They've already hired an architect and we can see some of the elevations, but it looks like the design is pretty much in keeping with the look and design of the Mint itself, the restaurant itself. So at this point, we didn't have other additional comments. We'll take a closer look as we get into land development review.
And to clarify again, the zoning hearing board, they would have to go in front of for the parking. Is that correct? For 3 more?
Yes, it looks, originally we anticipated that it would be more than 3, but it looks like they've been able to reduce the demand, that at this point they would only need relief for 3 more spaces.
Any questions for Ms. Andrews? Any comments, any input at this time in reference to the sketch plan review? Mr. Malozzi, yes.
Clarification, I understand that the special exceptions, so that'll go through the zoning hearing board. And at that time with special exception, they could potentially grant the waiver for 3 more parking spaces, or is that a variance that has to be sought?
We allow special exception relief for parking in the CL zoning district if they can meet certain criteria. And I think, they could point to things like it's on a transit line, that it's a walkable neighborhood. They can point to things like that that would show maybe a reduction in parking demand. So the zoning hearing board has some flexibility with that. If the zoning hearing board feels that they've not met the criteria for a special exception, then yes, they would need to show hardship for a variance.
5 transit lines, actually.
Mr. Malozzi knows the number as our Atlanta expert. No doubt.
No, I applaud, as Chairman Malosky said, coming in for a sketch plan. It's obviously pretty well developed. This is beyond conceptual at this point. Very familiar with the site, and like the fact that it's limited commercial, which is where it belongs. It's sort of a retro mixed use, taking a bank to a restaurant and then adding the residential component to it on an arterial. So I'm a fan of the project. I'm anxious to see it come back with a fully engineered plan as well. And is there any, just out of curiosity, is there any internal connection between the residences and the restaurant planned at this point?
No.
Okay, that might be in a minute.
So in the center there, Ms. Andrews, that I think you had mentioned an elevator or walkway. That would be the only access any residents would get to go down to the restaurants, correct?
Correct. Yes. But then you would have to exit the lobby. It would be under that canopy, under the first floor,
Correct.
the second floor platform. They would have to exit that lobby and then go into the restaurant.
And that
may
may-
separate the restaurant and the residents.
Right. And the main entrance for the restaurant is that yellow, highlighted kind of yellow area on your, I believe that's the front
That's
door.
main entrance for the restaurant.
Right.
And then there are 2 doors, one on the side here and then one kind of internal. We were envisioning that this would be reserved parking for the residents because there are 9 spots here. And then there's another door into the lobby here. You can get into the restaurant from this side or underneath. Those are existing entrances. Correct.
I'll reiterate Mr. Malozzi's. I'll agree with him, his comments. I think it's a great project. I think it's something that from a low volume standpoint, we're talking about 6 units. Certainly there has been variances granted before for parking way beyond 3 places. So I'm confident that a special exception is the way to go, and the zoning hearing board will leave that up to them. Do we have any other input, comments, questions for Ms. Andrews?
It's just also an appreciation for the owner not to cram too much onto the site. We're not increasing impervious surface, I guess, at all. In fact, maybe we're reducing it with some of the treatments, and we're getting more density on a corridor where it belongs. I also noticed the proposed name, Apartments. It's like a dad joke. Did somebody make that up?
I like
I
that.
like it.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone here in attendance have any comments on the sketch plan review at 1223 West Broad? Seeing none, then I would, pass along any form of a motion just from a standpoint of the comments that we gave today. For the record, I sounds that we are excited about this project. I think it's a great project and something that that part of our west side of Bethlehem would, increase the opportunity for someone to live in our city. So, motion, anything? Council? Sketch plan review.
I think if it's your, they have the discretion to make a recommend or just a positive
Yeah, let's
sense of the commission
Get
they
on the
want.
record. We'll do that. Get it on the
Yeah.
record.
Yep.
Get it on the record.
I'd like to make a motion
Mr. Malosi.
to pass along favorable comments, including those that are incorporated into the city's August 14th, 2023 review letter, and also the comments made by the commissioners at this meeting.
I would second that. Roll, please.
Ms. Cohen,
Yes.
Mr. Malosky,
Yes.
Mr. Malosey.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Andrews. Appreciate you coming in. Best of luck moving forward. We'll see you soon. Thank you. Our next agenda item is the land development plan at 2571, 2651 Easton Avenue. When the applicant step forward, we'll give you a minute or so to get yourself ready.
Coffee.
Yeah, I just asked. She said. I think that you can. Oh, swear to God. Yeah.
Okay, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Can everyone hear me well?
Yes.
Perfect. My name is Adam Citrullo with Bowler Engineering. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. Additionally, with me is Jason Posh, the owner and developer and applicant as well. I just want to provide a, let's call it brief introduction to the project, some brief background, go over the proposal, and then ultimately go over the review letters. So by way of, once again, let's call it brief background, we were had an initial staff meeting with the city back in February of this year, where we discussed the project conceptually. We had subsequently submitted in March and had received initial review letters in both April and May from the city, and additionally from Benchmark Engineering, the traffic engineering review. We had subsequently reviewed those letters, sat down with the city in June to kind of go over some comments, concerns you may have, had subsequently revised and resubmitted in June, and ultimately on receipt of the latest review letter in July. So just want to take a moment to go over, let's call it the project and property in question. So the site is located at the existing shopping center along Easton Avenue. It also has frontage on Claremont Street and Lewis Street. We'll note Easton Avenue is a state route. The lot is located at 2571 and 2651 Easton Avenue. It's a 7.351 acre lot. It is zoned CS Shopping Center. It has various existing uses on it, being a shopping center. I'm going to kind of list them briefly. The main use is obviously the shopping center. Additionally, there's various out parcel uses consisting of KFC and a Potts Hot Dog Shack. I will note that Taco Bell is not on the lot. That causes some confusion. The site has full access driveways onto each of the roads, and the surrounding uses includes various commercial uses, fast foods, there's a bank, there's additionally residential, and some commercial uses as well. From a parking perspective, the shopping center portion has 206 spaces dedicated to it. The KFC has 55 spaces. The Potts Hot Dog Shack has 1 space. So that's 262 total existing spaces, whereas 191 is required. So fairly overparked. Switch to the site plan exhibit. So the proposal before you is for a 2,500 square foot coffee shop with a use as indicated a fast food restaurant with drive-through, which is permitted by right within the shopping center. The specific location is, I'm going to call it, let's say, an out parcel area. It's along the parking field of 12 existing spaces along the Easton Avenue frontage and bordered by the main shopping center driveway. The project proposes a reduction in impervious of 1,875 square feet. Additionally, some additional details: that first intersection as you drive into that main driveway off of Easton Avenue is currently a 4-way intersection. As part of this project, we're actually proposing to close off the portion that, let's say, turns Plan East into the proposed development to essentially eliminate any undesired sharp maneuvers into the proposed development area. Additionally, there's the 2-way drive aisle existing that's located immediately along Easton Avenue. We're proposing to, as part of obviously putting the various drive-through improvements within that area, we're proposing to neck that down and ultimately create a 1-way drive-through, which essentially functions as the bypass lane to the drive-through, permits people who may potentially be in the drive-through queue to essentially sneak out, if you will, and continue and bypass the main queue. And it ultimately goes and proceeds to connect with the bypass lane to the Potts Hot Dog Shack. Additionally, we're proposing some additional striping to try and improve the circulation around the Potts Hot Dog Shack. The project also proposes some landscape islands, I'm going to call it, along the main parking field to the north of all the main improvements. Intent is to, in addition to increasing impervious, we're proposing some trees, some plantings in that regard. That was a specific request of the city staff, so we want to make sure everyone understands we're willing to comply with those comments. The parking in particular, I'd like to review the shopping center as a result of the improvements. There's 165 spaces proposed associated with just the shopping center use. That's a reduction in 41 total spaces, whereas 150 are required. So we're complying in that regard. There's no changes to the KFC. The 55 spaces are to remain existing. And additionally, no changes to the one required for the Potts Hot Dog Shack. The coffee shop in question has 19 spaces proposed. There's 10 immediately adjacent to the restaurant, and then there's ultimately 9 intended to be used across the drive aisle. In that regard, that's a total of 19 spaces in that regard. Additionally, the city had requested we look at upgrading the crosswalks and ADA ramps along the Easton Avenue driveway. That is something we have committed to and are currently going through that HOP process now. That has ultimately gotten the additional information we need and intend to submit that here shortly later this month. We expect that process to ultimately take a few months, hopefully with final permit issuance towards November, December in that regard. Additionally, we're proposing, as part of some comments, improving some of the, let's call it, concrete area by the existing bus stop, which is located essentially, it's called middle of the plan, if you will, along Easton Avenue. There's an existing bus stop. It was requested that we propose some additional concrete area between the grass strip just to provide some additional access such that passengers don't need to walk across that grass strip. So we have complied with that in that regard. That is the main proposals. We are in receipt of the latest review letter from the city, as I noted in July. I could certainly go through those unless you have any comments prior.
Thank you, Mr. Citrullo. A very thorough explanation, and knowing you haven't been here before, I'm not surprised. You always do a great job.
Thank you.
I will turn it over to any questions or comments from Planning Commission members for Mr. Citrullo, or anything that you want to ask on the June 30th memo. Ms. Cohen?
Thank you.
Yep.
I'm looking at C302, which is a larger plan than the one that's right there.
Yeah.
And there's a drive to the east and a marker that says stop. What is happening over there?
This location?
Yeah. Or can you talk about how someone would approach the site and exit that portion of the site?
Sure. So that's ultimately the bypass lane for both the coffee shop, and then it additionally connects to the bypass lane to the Potts Hot Dog Shack. That's part of the circulation improvements we had proposed. It's currently two-way, so we had proposed to reduce that, neck it down to one-way, to essentially only permit bypass to occur, essentially exiting the coffee shop drive-through. Whereas, say, if we left it two-way, there would have been a situation where a vehicle could conceivably drive essentially and cut line into the drive-through for the coffee shop. So we had to neck that down to one way, and the stop is ultimately intended to just some controls for reducing interference with the bypass lane for the Potts Hot Dog Shack. So if you're looking at the plan, we have some proposed drive-through. Let me just point to it. Here is the improved pavement marking circulation I had noted. So conceivably a customer for, say, the Potts Hot Dog Shack could both enter, let's call it, going south and immediately turn into the second drive-through lane for the Hot Dog Shack, but can additionally bypass, which this maintains the existing bypass area. And then conceivably a customer from, let's say, the coffee shop wants to utilize the bypass would enter this stop control and thus not disturb this drive-through lane, but then could conceivably continue along the bypass along the Hot Dog Shack.
So someone in the drive-through for the coffee shop is starting on the west side and going to the machine that you talked to,
Yeah, correct.
and then they're in line, and then suddenly they decide to go to the hot dog stand? I don't understand why there's a connection between the two
Yeah, so
locations.
it's a good point. So the intent isn't for, it's for a customer to essentially exit the line if they would like to. Say they drove into the line and decided they didn't want to order. Say they're in a hurry, like, well, actually I need to go down the road and do something else. Perhaps they may have ordered, perhaps they may have not have. It's for them to exit without sitting through the whole queue to ultimately pick up an order. And then in terms of where they are at the stop controlled intersection there, they could conceivably, I guess, enter the drive-through lane for the Hot Dog Shack. The intent is for them to continue through the bypass. And let me note that.
Okay.
This stripe is us further delineating that bypass area so you can exit out such that they're not restricted there and have to, say, sit in the queue for the Hot Dog Shack. They could simply bypass it.
So my thinking is if you would remove that section between the two locations, you would reduce impervious coverage. And I've been in numerous lines where you don't ever have a chance to exit. You just end up having to go through the rest of the line. I can't imagine that someone's going to be sitting at a coffee shop for such an extended time that they couldn't wait it out. So I'm kind of wondering
Mhm.
whether that's an absolute necessary portion of the site, or the client requested it, or
Yes. So a few things. Jason Posh here, part of the development team. One, the client will absolutely require that.
Okay.
And two, I would imagine all of the emergency services in the city will also require that.
Okay.
It's just so that if anything happens, somebody can get out of line.
Okay, thank you for answering.
Absolutely.
I do have an additional question on the landscaping.
Before you get to that, Ms. Cohen, if you don't mind, I'll jump in. And I totally appreciate your comments because, she's kind of right. But being the father of a 6-year-old and 3-year-old, I often frequent the Potts Hot Dog Shack. It is a little bit chaotic in that area as it pertains to traffic flow. So anything that could be structured, if you will, organized, if you will, and hearing Mr. Citrullo's explanation, it makes sense to have something in that light, kind of as an improvement. And before I turn it back to Ms. Cohen, without guessing what type of coffee shop this is, whether it's a Starbucks, maybe. I'm certain that you'll have a high traffic flow in and out of there, and that would definitely allow what you had said to occur. So I'll turn it back to Ms. Cohen on the question she had on landscaping.
So in the landscape plan, you have a number of shrubs between the drive-through and the building
Mhm.
on the Easton Avenue side of the building. There are a couple trees there. I'm just wondering if there should be some low landscaping on the Easton Avenue side to shield some of the queue from watching a line of 12 cars sitting there.
I see. So let me just ask back. So essentially, proposing some additional landscaping to essentially conceal the queue from the
Right.
road.
Low enough that you don't shield, there's a line there, but, tall enough to hide, the glare from the cars.
Yeah,
or,
the headlight glare.
Yes.
Are all 4 of those trees existing along Easton Avenue?
No, those 4 are proposed along Easton Avenue. Yeah, correct.
So the large existing tree and then 4 more already proposed. I mean, I'm open to your suggestions. What would you like to see?
Well, I think the trees, have their bases, 10, 12 feet high.
Sure.
And, so a little bit of low shrubbery on the southeast side of the drive-through, I think might be nice.
I'm just trying to think about planting things underneath trees. So the south side would make the
Well,
most
it looks like
sense.
it's not under the trees. There's space there, but if you could please consider
Sure.
adding additional landscaping to shield the cars at the drive-through.
Ms. Heller, I do not note any landscaping or forestry, if you will, comments on the memo. Is that something that Mr. Posh, you're open to continue discussion with city staff as it relates to Ms. Cohen's comments?
Sure.
Thank you. That was all.
Any other questions from any planning commission members? Mr. Malozzi.
Are you adding stormwater collection here? Like I noticed on a couple of the plans, it's pretty prominently displayed. Is that new inlets there, or is that?
Yeah, correct. There's several new inlets as part of the both city and Act 167. We weren't required to propose any additional stormwater facilities for, say, rate, water quality, or volume due to our reduction in impervious and our limited disturbance. But we are proposing catch basins.
Excellent. So we're taking an overdeveloped surface parking lot and putting productive use on it, decreasing impervious surface, adding stormwater facilities on top of that. Seems pretty good to me. And then just to clarify, because the city's letter of June 30th does not speak directly to the improvements that you're voluntarily doing, which is fantastic. The ramp and crosswalk improvements, as I understand it,
Yeah, correct.
and also some improvements to the Lanta bus shelter pad.
Yeah, correct.
I'd like to memorialize those in any sort of action that the commission decides.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And I would just say, if they're not in the comments, that means that they've already been incorporated on the site
Sure.
plan in response to a prior letter, but
So they're captured
yeah.
otherwise. Okay.
I mean, you could certainly put them in your motion or whatever you want to do, but I'm just saying that's why they're not there.
Mr. Yandom, you have a comment?
As Mr. Heller said, those comments that were previously in the previous letter.
Okay.
And we had a meeting with a developer and we discussed those things. And one of them is like, as Neil has mentioned, that they're gonna be adding more trees in the parking lot for shades. This is one of them, fixing the sidewalk and improving the ADA curb and improving the shelters. Those were in a previous letter, which were approved. That's why they're not shown on this letter right now.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
So I'll assume they're already captured here. So.
Is there anything else, Ms. Heller, from the memo that the city staff would like to comment on?
Well, because we had already reviewed the plan twice, there really aren't that many comments on here. It's a pretty clean plan, but as Mr. Malozzi noted, we also did take notice to the fact that they were willing to certainly make some of the upgrades that we had requested. So the crosswalks, the additional landscaping, the reduction in impervious, the upgrade to the transit stop. Those were all amenities that we felt were worthwhile, and they did make revisions to respond to that. So the comments at this point are pretty straightforward.
Thank you, Ms. Heller. Is there, Mr. Posh, are you able to let out what the coffee shop is, or is that not allowed at this time?
We have renderings.
You have renderings.
Does it say what it is?
You'll allow the renderings to send the
think
message.
it says right on it. Yeah, it does. There you go.
There you go. There you go. Enough said. Any comments by the Planning Commission? Any final questions for Mr. Citrullo or Mr. Posh? Seeing the renderings and hearing the presentation. Anyone here in attendance have any comment, questions as it pertains to the land development plan at 2571, 2651 Easton Avenue? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion at this time.
If I
I'm
could
sorry.
just
Yes,
interrupt,
Mr.
we have
Citro.
2 waivers that were requested. I didn't mean to toss that in there at the end here.
Ms. Heller,
Did.
was there documentation of waivers?
I don't have that. Do you have any?
Perhaps if you could just
Yeah,
go over those.
I
briefly.
have one letter here I can pass around, but it was ultimately requested with our March submission that had requested a waiver from the Stormwater Appendix A to allow for stormwater sewer pipes to be 6 inches in lieu of 18 minimum for the roof drains and downspouts, specifically only for the roof drains and downspouts. And then from the same section, Stormwater Management Ordinance Appendix A to allow for HDPE and PVC storm sewer pipes, HDPE for the main trunk lines, PVC for the roof leaders in lieu of the required RCP.
Mr. Yandom, is that correct?
I did not see, I don't recall honestly seeing this. And I don't know if it was submitted to any
Can you
of the
give it to
engineers.
Mr. Yandon for him
I'll
to?
take it down. I can say,
For the people in attendance, Basil Yandom is our one of our city engineers, so that's why I passed it along. Council, is that something we need to clarify prior to acting?
I would
on
say,
this?
yes, I would say so. I think, Basil, can you, I mean, I don't know how quickly you need or how much time you need to review that. We don't want to put you under pressure.
I like for the RCP pipe, we need to review that. We need to know what the location of it. I cannot just approve it like that because I need to know where it's going to be located and what there is any traffic on top of it and all of that. I'm okay with number 1 for the 6 inches, but I'm not sure if these, council, please. I'm not sure if these need to be approved in here by.
Can we, council,
This is need just.
can we put this in, council, can we add this in as a stipulation with the motion pending the approval of the waivers and still act on it?
Can I see that?
Yeah.
Make it a condition of approval.
He's okay with one, but not two.
Yeah, if it becomes an issue and the RCP is a sticking point, the applicant's certainly willing to
Okay with-
propose those.
For approval. Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean,
I'm certain, council, we have done this before, that we can put it in as a condition of approval. And if it is not approved, then you just have to come back to
Yeah.
us. So certainly I'm not trying to slow this down by any means, but understand having this put in front of us now.
who would typically grant waivers for that? I mean, like you're saying, is it, so you, all right, so you would do it administratively?
Yeah.
Okay, so they wouldn't have to come back here for any,
Unless they don't approve it, then they have to come back. If Basil says, hey man, this isn't
Right.
what you want it, then they gotta come back.
Yeah.
If they're okay with it,
But-
we
but-
act on it, it's approved.
but you're saying even if it like doesn't comply, you could administratively grant a waiver, like under the stormwater management ordinance? Okay, okay. So then there's no, so I guess there's really no way they would need to come back, because I assume if he's not gonna give a waiver, the commission would.
The previous situation,
Why would they have to come back if the waiver's not granted? They'd have to.
Change during construction.
Well, I'm saying, but if engineering has the authority and only the authority to grant the waiver,
I'm not doubting that. I'm not saying that, council. I'm saying, no. Come back.
I guess what I'm saying is if it's only engineering's prerogative, there's no relief they could get from us. That's it, 925, is that what it is? Stormwater management regulation.
Yes.
Yes.
This is it? Okay. Appendix A.
Yeah, there is a reference to it in here. though.
Okay, here. So this is the saldo.
Yeah.
This is required improvements. And then here for storm sewer and street requirements under
Stipulated.
that shall be stipulated in 22.
Okay,
So there are no stormwater requirements specifically.
We're just-
listed in here.
referencing this. Okay.
Just
Just-
reference it.
Can you-
So then their request for a waiver, they don't even have to request for a waiver. What?
No, just look, here, just
Yeah.
look.
He's looking for, I guess, looking for a section on how to get a waiver from this.
Mr. Citrullo, part of those requests, was it for 2 waivers or 1 general waiver? That
It's 2 for 2 specific.
repeat them again.
I do not have the
We
list in
have-
front of me.
One, the first is, they're both from the stormwater ordinance. The first is to allow for storm sewer pipes of 6 inches in lieu of the required 18-inch minimum. And the second is to allow for HDPE and PVC storm sewer pipe material in lieu of the required RCP for roof drain pipes and downspouts.
I mean, the language in Article 925 is that. Sure.
So here there was a comment from engineering where the developer asked for the drainage to be in 6 inches. This is the waiver request pertained to roof drains, and the stormwater pipe design requirement only applied to pipe within the public right of way. Therefore, the proposed roof leader material and size is acceptable. So this is the first comment, which I said I don't have a problem with it.
So they've already.
And they don't need to get a waiver. for
Okay,
it
so
because
that one's taken
it's
care
not
of.
in a right of
All right.
way.
Do you know that the waiver provisions in 925 require a written waiver request accompanied by a $1,000 fee. I mean, okay, all right.
We've never required.
Okay.
Can I?
Waiving the waiver.
What do you wanna-
Yeah, well,
One of-
What?
one of-
Proposed where? What's connection? It's all on site. It's all on site. There's nothing,
Reinforced concrete.
So the only requirement is any.
Mr. Yadam, are we correct in hearing that the waiver in reference to the material of the drainage pipe is what's being questioned?
The material and the size.
Right, the size, yes.
It is on a private property.
Especially if someone's driving over it and whatnot.
No, this is not, for the first question, it's not about anybody driving on top of it. The first one is just the roof drain,
Okay,
36 inches. This is off right of way, so we don't interfere with that. And for the second one. This is the height. How low are you gonna take it? How low? They need minimum covers. The 18 inches.
yeah.
I'm fine with it, both of them.
And so not so much that you would grant the waivers, but I think what you're saying is that the waiver isn't required because these are both requested for roof drain pipes and downspouts,
That's for the first one.
which are, this one says it too. Roof drains and downspouts, even in the second one.
If it's for both, then that's fine, even though the pipe is going across, so it's not gonna be there. But we are currently using HDPE pipes in some places as a demo, and we are finding it successful. Therefore, I can approve those, both of them, and I don't mind that they can use them.
Fine.
So what you're saying is the applicant's proposal for what's described as a waiver of Stormwater Management Ordinance Appendix A regarding allowing, or the request to allow the HDPE and PVC storm sewer pipe material in lieu of the required RCP is essentially a requested modification that captures the spirit or the objective of the current requirement.
Yes.
Yes, okay. I think in light of the Planning Commission's ability to grant waivers to the SALDO, which incorporates by reference the requirements of Article 925 and how modifications can be granted, even in absence of a hardship, I think if the Planning Commission, based on Mr. Yandam's representation that, I guess, no waivers required for request one, actually, and request two, the request modification is consistent with the objectives of Appendix A. Okay.
Could I ask a clarification?
Yes, Ms. Cohen.
If we should make a motion regarding this, there's no need for a motion regarding waiver number one, but waiver number two would be stipulation that the engineering department would administratively approve the request.
That to me would make sense, counsel, the way we place the motion, as Ms. Cohen stated. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. I will accept the motion at this time.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the land development plan for the property at 2571 to 2651 Easton Avenue, contingent upon the applicant meeting the requirements of the June 30th letter from the city, with the additional stipulation that their request for a waiver regarding Stormwater Ordinance Appendix A, HDPE and PVC stormwater pipes be administratively approved by the engineering department, and the client consider additional landscaping on the east side of the east southeast side of the drive-through for the proposed building.
I will,
I'm sorry, hey, Basil, it says here, the RCP, right? Okay. the language in the appendix, it says, generally storm sewer pipe shall be watertight, O-ring, reinforced concrete pipe, RCP. The city engineer may allow a plastic or other type of pipe under certain conditions, right? Okay, so, right, in other words, we're not even, you're basically allowing it in the way that you've allowed number one. Okay, well, I think that's helpful in the sense that they're not even really requiring a waiver of the current condition. We're not deviating from it. You're just saying that we're allowing this pipe in this circumstance. Okay. No, I'm sorry. Just
Council, the way the motion was made, do we need to amend it? Yes or no, sir?
no.
No. Motion is on the floor. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second, Mr. Malozzi. Roll, please.
Ms. Cohen,
Yes.
Mr. Malosky,
Yes.
Mr. Malozzi.
Yes.
Thank you for coming. Excellent job, Mr. Trullo, Mr. Posh. Best of luck. We'll
Thank you.
see you for a coffee. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Apologize for the monkey wrench, but
No
appreciate your
worries.
understanding.
No worries. We have a thorough counselor here that does an outstanding job. How do you read?
My eyes are bad enough. They can't get much
Our
worse.
next agenda item, excuse me, 1620 East 4th Street, Land Development and Subdivision Plan will allow the applicant a few minutes to get set up.
I mean,
That's fine.
you could have worked. I mean, we could have worked in a way that they didn't even need a waiver for another. Go ahead. I don't want to.
Out there like that, you almost feel like you got it, right? If you are ready, sir, you may introduce yourself. We may begin.
Good evening. My name's Andrew Bull from Hanover Engineering. I've been in front of the board before on numerous
Yes, Mr. Bull.
projects
Good to see
before.
you again.
I'm in front of the board this evening for the proposed land development project at Lot 23B in LVIP 7. This is across the street from their existing, I shouldn't say existing, the facility. It's across the street from LVIP's office and also across the street from the Candlewood Suites property, and just to the west or to the left of the proposed sheets that's proposed on lots 24B, I believe it, 24. So with that said, this is a proposed Taco Bell restaurant with a drive-through. The zoning hearing board granted a special exception for the drive-through at their May 17, 2003 meeting for the drive-through. On May 3rd, Lehigh Valley Planning Commission reviewed and issued their review letter for this project. LVIP granted their approval for this project back in April 4th. On July 20th, we received the NPDS permit for this property as well, and we're in receipt of the August 9th review letter from the city rather. And there's basically 4 comments, and we have no objections to any of those.
No objections. Fine.
And basically, what you see there is we're proposing a roughly 2,700 square foot Taco Bell with queuing for 12 vehicles and a bypass as well. And touching on the comment of previously earlier about landscaping, we're proposing 34 trees and over 200 shrubs on the subject parcel. So we're looking for approval from the board this evening.
Thank you,
Do you have
Mr.
any
Bull.
questions?
Any comments or questions from the Planning Commission for Mr. Bull? Ms. Cohen, yes.
Yes. Can you clarify on the north side along 4th Street that there's a connection from the existing sidewalk
Sure.
to the property?
Right here, there's the existing tree. If you look, we have a sidewalk here that comes across and comes across at the very end of the queuing out of the drive-through. So we put it in that manner, so there's enough visibility for the cars coming.
And then is it a marked crosswalk there?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My other comment was also regarding sidewalks. There's a sidewalk on the lot 24 and a sidewalk on the lot 23, but I don't see a connection across that proposed driveway.
Yeah, there's a crosswalk there. Unfortunately, you can't see it on my plan, but there is an existing crosswalk. This area that I'm pointing to is actually installed this portion of the right in and the right out, and there is striping there. You can't. There you go. So our project's just to the left of the screen up at the top. You see where the sidewalk. There's sidewalk on both sides of 412 or 4th Street, on both sides, along LVIT's properties.
So the lines across the drive-through are sort of the drive-in and exit. Those are the existing crosswalks, or is that?
That's exactly, that's
Okay.
existing crosswalk that's right in this vicinity. So this lighter colored gray, that's an existing pavement, and this is the existing concrete island. And then you'd come off 412 and come into here and circumvent through the site this way, and you come into the drive-through here, and then come out and exit this way. Here's the sidewalk that has a attachment or attached to the existing sidewalk on 412.
I would just ask, when the project is constructed, that the crosswalks are clearly identified.
Oh, certainly. Yeah, I apologize, but due to the hatching of the pavement, you can't see. But we do have a label on here called crosswalk with 24-inch striping.
And also the crosswalks at the proposed drive-through. Drive-in, yeah. Not the drive-through, sorry, the driveway.
They're already existing.
As long as they're maintained, that they're clearly marked, that's all I'm asking.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Malozzi.
It's a good question, similar to the last application. Is that something that engineering has already commented on? Because this letter is obviously very clean. It's obviously been through reviews, like it's all been specified.
And Ms. Heller, if there's anything else to add from the August 9th memo, feel free. I know this was kind of discussed in another project down in this area. Obviously, we're looking for the walkability factor in our city, and Ms. Cohen's comments are appreciated that all those walkways are highlighted, maintained, and what have you. So is there anything else from that August 9th letter, Ms. Heller, that needs to be pointed out?
No, I mean, on that plan you see to the east is the sheets that you've already seen. And I think that's where there was some discussion about sidewalk connections and things like that. I'll just say that the traffic comment is LVIP has agreed to do additional study after the sheets and the Taco Bell, and then there'll be another development to the west in the other vacant parcel. Once they are constructed, usually after 6 months or so, they'll do another traffic count just to make sure that the information that they gave us was accurate. And then we would see if any additional improvements need to be made at that time.
Understood. Thank you. Anyone here in attendance have any questions or comments as it pertains to the land development plan at 1620 East 4th Street? Any other further questions or discussion at this time? Planning Commission members, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the application for 1620 East 4th Street land development and subdivision plan of lot 23 into lot 23A and B, based on the contingent upon the letter from the city dated August 9th, 2023, with the additional consideration that the sidewalks along 4th Street be clearly marked.
Motion made by Ms. Cohen. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Malozzi. Roll, please.
Ms. Cohen,
Yes.
Mr. Malozzi,
Yes.
Mr. Malosky.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Bull. Appreciate it. Good to see you again. Best of luck moving forward. Our final agenda item is the land development plan at 3769 Commerce Center Boulevard. We'll give the applicant a moment or two to get prepared. Once you're ready, you may introduce yourself and begin.
Good evening. My name is Kyle Haight with Pannoni Associates. I'm representing Commerce Construction for Majestic Bethlehem Center, Lot 5 expansion plan. We had some comments from a previous letter that we mostly addressed, and we're down to just a few minor ones. In particular, we understand that we need to provide retaining wall calculations for the design of the 2 retaining walls, a few fees to pay. I updated the note 30 for CS 8501 and sent a PDF to Craig this afternoon. And outside of that, him and I had discussed the zoning wall comment 1 that we believe should be removed from the letter as it does not apply to this project.
Can you clarify that, Ms. Heller, the comment he is looking to be, or Mr. Pfeiffer, if you want to?
Certainly, it's not applicable in the particular district that this building is located in. There is no application of the section that talks about retaining walls and their height.
And that's number 1 under the zoning on the.
That's correct.
So that'll be, for the record, that'll be removed.
That is correct.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Haight from the Planning Commission? Yes, sir, Mr. Malozzi.
Out of curiosity, is the expansion going into what's currently a stormwater basin?
No, that's just a grass area at the north end of Lot 5, which is currently McKesson.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, no problem.
Ms. Heller, anything else to add from the August 3rd memo?
No, there is a very, very, very large warehouse there now. And anywhere else, an 80,000 square foot addition would be huge, but in comparison, it's not that large.
Well,
so, they're using up all the industrial space they can out there.
And
that's
certainly
a
that
good thing.
that term warehouse is a bit of a buzzword in the Lehigh Valley, but I will say proudly that the city of Bethlehem does it right, putting in our industrial park in that area, and obviously Majestic has done a great job with that. So anyone here in attendance have any comments or questions for Mr. Haight? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I'll make a motion to approve the application for 3769 Commerce Center Boulevard Land Development Plan, contingent upon the client meeting the requirements of the August 3rd letter from the city of Bethlehem, with the exception of item number 1 under zoning, which has been removed by the zoning department.
Motion made, Ms. Cohen. I will second that. Roll, please.
Ms. Cohen,
Yes.
Mr. Malozzi,
Yes.
Mr. Molaski.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Haight. Appreciate you coming on, best of luck moving forward.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Heller, any discussion items that need to be brought up? We are 3 strong today. We are missing 2, but certainly anything in the hole here that on the submission summary coming up that we need to be aware of?
A lot of these have been on here for a little while, and a couple of these can actually come off. We just did this one too. So I'm not sure what we have pending for September. 925 Bethlehem Drive is very new. That's an expansion for Phoenix Tube over in an industrial complex. Spillman Drive, also located in LVIP 1, may be ready for September review, is proposed next door to the existing hotel on 4th Street. Most of the others, I think, are sort of in flux otherwise. I would mention.
Right off the highway. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
I was talking to Mr. Malozzi, that area that we just saw tonight with the Taco Bell, it's starting to kind of take its own little shape. And I think everything that is being put there is appropriate for that, part of our city. Some of the fast food type restaurants, obviously the warehouses and LVIP, but hotels and lodging is adequate from the highway, easy on kind of deal, easy
A
off.
very desirable location. And I believe consciously there was a desire to hold on those lots that front 412 until that those improvements were complete and that was all cleaned up. And really, when you look at that site, most of the interior lots have already been developed. A lot has happened since LVIP and Majestic have been working on developing there. So really, these front parcels are pretty much the remainder of what needs to be completed. The only other thing I would mention for September is that's the month where you typically review the city's 5-year capital plan. And
Or you get them the saldo, right?
I don't know.
Yes.
That in legal review?
I thought that was in the
I
legal
want that after
department
the
at this
record,
time.
after we take this off. But we sometimes we have looked at moving the September meeting back to accommodate that capital plan, and we may request that again if that can be pushed back a Thursday or 2 Thursdays in
And-
September. So,
And if that's the case, I know Mr. Hernandez will notify us and keep us abreast with the change if necessary. So, anything else?
not at this time.
Motion to adjourn. Thanks everyone to come. Ms. Cohen.
We'll still try to get you the 5-year plans.
Yeah, we'll get there.
But, like, just in case. Or
Good.
progress.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.